Thank you for joining us on our journey here to preserve the history of mixed martial arts. When I wanted to take on this project, I needed help. I brought in one of my favorite matchmakers, Miguel Iturrate, and the MMA Detective, Mike Davis. So to do this, we've been able to preserve history. Welcome and enjoy.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are back for another edition of ADCC History. Miguel Iturrate. Joining us is Carlos Diaz. Carlos, obviously you're the head referee for ADCC. This is kind of our opportunity to not only review past moments in ADCC history, but also include people that were physically at the events. So rather than just watching a tape and giving your synopsis on what you saw, we're taking like the feelings and emotions from the actual event by people that were part of it administratively. So that's kind of like our intent behind this segment. And this time we're covering Roger Gracie's historic run in 2005. Previous to this, in 2003, ADCC was in Brazil. And if you look at what happened with Renzo, Royler, and Roger, all three took losses. So they're in their home city, getting to show everybody, hey, this is kind of our homecoming. This is what we're all about. And none of them got ADCC gold. In 2005, this is kind of what I refer to as the Gracie revenge, Roger's historic run. Carlos, why don't you tell us what your duties were for that event?
Well, number one, thank you for having me, guys. It's awesome. We've known each other for a very long time. And, I've always made the joke that we probably met each other more outside of the continental U.S.
True.
than actually in the U.S. But listen, so 2005 was an awesome year because if I'm not mistaken, and, I've been punched a lot and dropped in my head a lot. So 2005 was the first year we did it at the Pyramid in California, correct?
That's correct. Yes, that is correct.
So the Pyramid has kind of like turned into a legendary venue for jiu-jitsu and grappling after that. And my duties during that time was as a table judge and referee during the ADCC event. But at that time, I believe you and Miguel were also involved in it.
Yeah.
And, back then we did it all. We got coffees, we get wristbands, and we set up mats. And,
I was driving the bus.
That was the way we did it. We had to do it all and make it happen. So, that was my primary duties, obviously, were as referee and table judge.
That's excellent. So, Miguel, why did you guys choose California at this year? What was the mitigating factors in regards to going there to the Pyramid?
Well, I've been involved with the event since the Abu Dhabi ones, helping them organize it. And in 2003, I didn't have a vested position though. In 2003, they had taken it to Brazil and they, had a promoter there. There were certain things that didn't happen. Like every single match in Brazil was not recorded by the main cameras because they set up a TV crew to aim for one mat, and we had 3 mats. So matches like Ryan Gracie and Jacare are lost from 2003. So in 2005, they took other applications from other promoters. But I think I had the inside track because, they knew me. They knew that I delivered for them before. And taking it to California was something that we had already done with the trials. So I was pretty confident. Getting the Pyramid, as Carlisle mentioned, the Pyramid's on San Diego State University campus. It's their building, I'm pretty sure. It's a beautiful modern building, especially, in the early 2000s when we used it. And because of the Pyramid and the Arab twist and things, it was really like a stylish choice for the building. Like it was the best choice for the building that we could have had, short of Madison Square Garden, which would have been empty. So my hat's off to San Diego State University and their administration too, because they took a risk and said, go ahead and do the we showed them video and this, and they allowed us to do it there. And it was something that was unprecedented. And I'm kind of proud that the venue's gone on to be used again, because it means that we did a good job and they didn't ban us.
Right. So to start this
And
tournament
a
out.
little real quick correction. I'm not 100% sure. I think it's the Dominguez Hills Long Beach University.
Okay.
The pyramid. San Diego's a little further south.
Beach, you're absolutely right. It's not San Diego State, it's Long Beach. Yep.
That's correct. So to start the tournament, Roger draws Justin Chim Chim Garcia. Garcia is one of Rob Kahn's guys, and he actually won the trials, went all the way up to Canada, where Miguel, I think in your interview with Rob Kahn that we did, you had told me that I think the reason you guys chose that location in Nova Scotia is because you guys got free hotel rooms. So Chim Chim is the first domino that Roger knocks down. But he didn't go down real easy. Carlos, do you remember that bout?
I do. And if I'm not mistaken, if I wasn't the ref, I was the judge for that particular match. And I knew Chin Chin's story. And
tough wrestler.
Chin Chin, man, he's built literally like a wrecking ball. He might be like 5'5", 200 plus pounds of muscle. And he's literally built like a wrecking ball. He's round, solid. And I remember Chin Chin taking Roger down and saying to someone, oof, this is going to be a rough day today for Roger. As Roger transitioned and ends up taking Chim Chim's back, and it's all she wrote.
Yeah. So Chim Chim got a big slam. Rob Kahn recites the story of, we were a little late to see the brackets. As we're walking there, everybody's looking at us like they're staring at us. And we said, yeah, it's Roger. Just by the way, people are just looking at us. We knew it was Roger. And to Chim Chim's credit, he went in there and got a big slam. He really put it on Roger, but it was just Roger's night. He ends a rear forearm choke and on to the next match. And the back essentially is kind of the story of this tournament for Roger. It's a reoccurring theme of him taking people's back. Eduardo Diaz, Fabio Gurgel, black belt under Alliance. That was his second bout.
Eduardo Diaz, that he became really famous for what they call the turtle guard.
Yeah.
And again, I want to say, if I was not the ref, I was the table judge for that match, where, Tellez was very smart about the point system. And because he developed his own style of turning on all fours, he felt comfortable there. They had a pretty good, I remember them having a pretty decent stand-up match a little bit, and Tellez going to all fours. And everybody thought Tellez was going to do what he does, which is he rolled very well from there and, looking from submissions from that position. But once again, Roger, decided that not today. And if I'm not mistaken, Roger submitted Eduardo Tellez with an armbar, right?
Armbar. So 2 matches in, 2 submissions. This is when, Miguel, I think you'll agree, people started talking like, man, what's going on with Roger? Like he's found a different gear.
Yeah, absolutely. 2003 he made his debut at Abu Dhabi, and obviously, with the Gracie family, he'd been coming up, but they hadn't shown him off yet. 2003 was his supposed coming out party, and it didn't go well for them. You could also mention Ryan Gracie lost to Jacare in the first round. So the Gracies basically went 0 for 4. In 2005, Renzo's 2 years older, and Renzo's been moving weight classes. He's Renzo and Abu Dhabi are kind of synonymous. It was Roger that got all the attention coming in because he was rising also. 2004, 2005, you can check, but he probably had made an impact in the Jiu-Jitsu World Championships and stuff, and then cleaned up his Abu Dhabi loss from 2003. Nobody remembered that anymore. He was the number 1 ranked guy coming in 2005. And he was acting like it too. He was developing into the total package there, especially on the grappling side where he would always be, ahead of his MMA game.
And
so Carlos,
also, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
What I was saying is, Miguel hit a note that it was very important in there, and I think it's been a particular perspective. Usually, debut guys in ADCC do not do well historically. The pressure gets to them, the attention. ADCC, is one of the most prestigious events to ever win. It is life-changing to a lot of people, including Roger. And Roger went on a rampage those 2 years in the jiu-jitsu world with very basic technique, where that point of 2005 to 2007, we were starting to see some transition in a lot of the techniques used. And Roger was the guy that stuck to fundamentals and beat everybody in the most basic way possible. And I hate to say basic, but with the most fundamental techniques possible. It was very kind of almost that you can predict, what is Roger going to do? He's going to take you down. He's going to pass your guard. He's going to take your back, and he's going to choke you or armbar you. And that's what he did. So it was really cool. And I remember during the weigh-ins at 2007, Roger was walking with a very different confidence for the weigh-ins. You could tell, okay, mentally something has changed here. So I don't know. I know Renzo was very involved in his developing during that time. But whatever they did in their camp leading up to the 2007 ADCC,
2005.
Obviously, I'm sorry, 2005 ADCC. It really took effect, and it was a very different athlete that year.
Yes, yeah. So, and we're going to talk about just how different he was based on his bout with Xande Ribeiro. Xande Ribeiro, if you're listening to this, you obviously know who Xande is. Xande is an absolute savage. He and his brother Salo are some of the most, I guess, dominant competitors in grappling right around this time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, I believe that Xande, before that match with Roger, was on score ever in ADCC. And also had one of the longest runs other than Barry Yoshida. I believe Barry Yoshida has participated in 10 ADCCs.
Yeah.
Xande, I think, has the second, and also one of the most winning athletes in the sport. I mean, Xande is a living legend. And he's actually participating this year.
Yeah, he's always competing. So he's a living legend that's just not living off maybe 2 or 3 years in competing. You're talking about a lifetime athlete that
absolutely
is he's not afraid to test his mettle. And you said he's unscored upon. Well, Roger beats him with a rear naked choke.
Absolutely. Again, Roger does what Roger does best, which is, work for the takedowns, pass guard, take the back, look for the choke or armbar submissions. And, and he actually, the match was a very exciting match, if, from recollecting memory, that it was kind of like a little bit of a back and forth because, again, Xande is the top of the food chain when it comes to grappling, especially with his history with ADCC. And, I believe,
he wasn't going to.
I can't remember if it was in overtime. I believe they went to a single overtime.
No, the next bout was overtime.
Well, yeah, the next bout is historical because a lot of people want to claim the submission for Roger and give him the 100% submission rate. And, I guess technically yes, but also technically it was not a submission.
Okay, let me set it up real quick. So he gets through Xande.
Yeah, before we finish with Xande, the thing that's important too, I think, from a jiu-jitsu perspective, and I'm not the best person to give the jiu-jitsu perspective, but I think what you have to recognize there is that this is a battle of the Gracies because Saulo and Xande Ribeiro are Hoyler students, if I'm not mistaken. So they come from Hoyler's branch, not Renzo's. And that's why this was a match where There wasn't any give or anything like they'd already figured it out in the gym or they knew each other. They did really. Jande was not ready to take a. He wasn't there to lose. He was there to win.
No, he was not.
I think it was very much.
He was there to ballot it out, and you can see it throughout the match. I mean, if you find video of it and you play it, you can really see that they're really going at it. They're giving it their all.
Wow. So into the finals, we've got Alexandre Ferreira, UFC IFL veteran, somebody that is also a very, very high-level jiu-jitsu guy, world champion as well. And Carlos, do you remember? Why don't you walk us through? You kind of started. What took place in that bout?
So Alexander Ferreira, everybody knows him from Cacareco. And if you ever called him a jiu-jitsu player, he'll probably punch you in the chest because he claims himself as a very renowned luta libre guy. So they had. Say again?
Yeah, he comes from Ruas and that crew, and he's very very much a grappling.
He did a little time at shootbox too, though. Little time.
Yes, yeah. For his MMA career, I know he was going back and forth to train with those guys. But I remember the Roger and Cacareco match. Telling someone, man, if you ever felt pressure and not be the one involved in the match, that's the match to watch. Because I remember Roger and Cacareco engaging and then telling someone at the table, I think I told Peter Batowski, the head judge for ADCC, and I told him, man, this was like two trains clashing with each other, that you feel the intensity. And, Roger came in with a full gas tank to that match because
he was fresh.
The standard period finished 0-0. So ADCC at the world level has the liberty to give up to 2 overtimes. And at the end of the first period of the regular standard period, you can tell that Cacareco was already gassed and tired. And he's a bigger guy. He's short in stature, probably close to my height, maybe 5'9", 5'10", but he is rock solid diesel, a lot of muscle. And
much like
I've always
yourself.
said, yeah, right. And I've always said, big muscle burns big fuel. And you can tell that Cacareco was a little on the tired side compared to Roger. And first overtime goes, and once again, Roger starts pushing the action and pushing the tempo of the match. But once again, it ends up 0-0. So ADCC made the decision, round 2, second overtime. And Cacareco refused to come out. And so they called it a verbal tap, and he had no more gas on the tank, and giving Roger that 4 out of 4 submission rate.
So Cacareco, do you think if they wouldn't have called for a second overtime, who do you think they would have awarded the bout to?
Roger.
Okay, so he's just more active.
Roger positionally was a lot more aggressive, which is one of the things that we look at ADCC is who is initiating, who is the most aggressive, and the person really looking to improve position and looking for submission. Because as a jiu-jitsu player, there are certain things that you can do to stall, especially if you're a superior wrestler, for example. Roger was absolutely the most aggressive athlete out of that match.
Obviously, Miguel, he never had a point scored against him. Finished everybody. Everybody at the event is like, oh my God. Like, that was the story. Then Roger enters the absolute. And what took something from special to historic was what took place in that tournament. Because that was, if your mind was blown before, like, your heart would have stopped watching his performance there. Shinya Ayaki, obviously a smaller guy, all the way from Japan. He beat Shinyaki with a footlock. And in his second round, he gets Fabricio Werdum.
But before you get to Werdum, you have to understand, Aoki at the time was known as a leg lock guy. Roger beat, even though it's a smaller guy, he beat the leg lock guy at the leg lock game. And, and that's why one of the things that I mentioned, that during that period of time, it was a transition where you started seeing a lot more leg submissions in the submission wrestling and the jiu-jitsu world. So that's something to note because, coming into ADCC, I knew that Shinya Aoki was training with Imanari and some of the other guys in Japan. And again, he was known as the leg lock guy back then. And Roger made it look easy.
Yeah. Miguel, with Werdum, obviously, if you've got one of the probably the greatest heavyweight ever. People always say Fedor, Emelianenko is the greatest MMA heavyweight ever to live. The clear and concise argument to that is Fabricio Werdum, and what he's done in jiu-jitsu mirrors what he's accomplished in mixed martial arts. And that Werdum Hodger fight was very surprising. Would you not agree, Miguel?
Yeah, we're doing a debate and appeared in 2003 ADCC. He was actually there as Mark Kerr's coach, as we documented, and got in the tournament when other people dropped out. Did well, but sort of like Roger, got somewhere into the middle of the pack, and got a taste for it, but didn't really win in 2003. But you're talking about a guy that, in terms of the Gracies, Jean-Jacques Machado is going to be in the super fight this year in 2005 because so you had the Gracies and the Machados, and the Bearing family gets forgotten there. But, Fabrizio is their flag bearer. And I think that was another spot where that jiu-jitsu pride hadn't been figured out, that Werdum was going to go in there not knowing, I don't think he enrolled with Roger. Werdum got brought up in Spain and stuff, and it's like this was another one of those matches where I think we got about as pure a match as we could get in Abu Dhabi. And that wasn't always the case there because a lot of people were teammates and people knew each other and things. But this was the pecking order was being figured out here.
Yes,
absolutely.
Yes. So after Werdum, in his third bout, he gets Xande Ribeiro in a rematch.
But before we get to Xande, again, remember here, Werdum and Roger, they built very similar, and that was also another match that went double overtime.
Yeah.
So people need to understand the length that Roger's been on the mat now, going into the absolute, the second day of ADCC, and once again, like you said, Werdum his credentials when it comes to grappling are top notch. Goes to double overtime with Roger, and Roger submits him on double overtime
with a
rear naked choke.
Yeah. He goes against Xande and poor Xande. You never hear the words poor Xande Ribeiro, ever. But he matches up with Hodger again, and once again falls to a rear naked choke.
Correct. On the I believe that the semifinals.
The semifinals.
And it was just Roger's day, and Roger is the kind of guy that, again, with fundamentals, he make elite guys look like beginners. Maybe not so much beginners, but he has a way of making people look bad.
If you can pull trying to move is one thing. Pulling it off on a black belt is a completely different story, and he pulled it off consistently throughout this weekend.
So
absolutely, and there's levels to the game because you say black belt, like, listen, I'm a black belt, but I'm a bum. I know purple belts that would mop the floor with black belts nowadays, and but you're talking about Fabricio Werdum, you're talking about Xande Ribeiro. These are the guys of the top of the food chain in 2000, in the early 2000s. So,
and in the regular tournament, Xande took third. So you're looking at a guy that should have been in the finals had he been on the other side of the bracket.
Correct.
So, I mean, it's as legit as he comes. Falls again to a rear naked choke. Zandi ends up taking fourth. Marcelo Garcia beats him. And in the finals, he faces a guy that he had lost to a year prior by points, Ronaldo Souza.
Jacare. Correct.
Jacare. Yes, sir.
And they had history because Roger broke Jacare's arm at the World Championships the year before with the gi. And so Jacare toughed it out, shoved his hand in his belt, and still found the drive to win versus Roger by points with a broken arm.
I think it was like an advantage. Yeah.
Yeah. So, so now everybody is paying attention.
It was by points. He lost by points. I apologize.
Okay. Yeah. I believe it was a takedown, if I'm not mistaken, in the World Championship.
Yeah.
But then now here they're paying attention as in, is Roger going to take revenge from his loss with the gi to Jacare? And it just, again, Roger does what Roger does best and took his back. And in a moment of a 2 second, not even 2 seconds of distraction, Roger sinks in the choke and puts Jacare out and winning double gold with a 100% submission rate. Never done before, never done after.
No.
And considering, we're doing world champion in MMA as well, Jacare. Did Jacare hold the middleweight belt at some point? Because
I believe he did at Strikeforce.
Okay, and he's a major contender in the UFC for a long time. I mean, and Xande Ribeiro's still competing at the highest level to this day, So this actually was one of the more competitive runs in Abu Dhabi history that you're ever going to see until the modern era where, the trials kicked in and new people are rotating in and there's thousands of competitors. But from the early days, when Renzo Gracie fought Feitosa, his student, in Abu Dhabi, there wasn't the tension of these matches like Jacare and Roger and stuff. And the additional revenge there is that it was Jacare in Brazil who sent Ryan Gracie home. And Ryan was always the madman kind of X factor with the Gracie family. That was perhaps the most tense fight of the Abu Dhabi tournament in Brazil. There were a lot of tense ones, right? But that was perhaps the most tense one. So there's a lot of revenge going into this match beating Jacare. And Jacare, a prideful guy, exactly like Xande, exactly like we're done. He wasn't ready to cede to Roger the way Feitosa was not ready to beat Renzo Gracie. So,
Miguel, if I believe this is the year, wasn't Jacare like a last-minute replacement that flew in?
No. That happened in Abu Dhabi. His first appearance, he came in at the last minute. There's a lot of open questions as
whether he made weight or not.
Yeah, that he didn't make weight and stuff. I'm going to tell you this. That was the first appearance of him. He later became very thick and dropped to 185, obviously, as a big middleweight. But I was told, I didn't see a weigh-in, and the rumor is that he wasn't, but I was told that he was walking around on weight, which would be 186. And if you look at him physically, the weight wasn't the difference with Roger.
Well, Jacare at this tournament was very animated. Like, he was taking advantage of the spotlight. He did everything he could to make sure that people remembered him. And, to end up with Roger in the finals and Roger, again, taking the back and sinking with a rear naked choke, it's all that anybody could talk about for about the next 2 weeks after that event.
Absolutely. And once again, that feat of attaining double gold with a 100% submission rate has never done ever since. He's the only one to ever do it.
Yeah, that the finals of the weight class where Kakareko didn't go continue. That one's kind of questionable, but but it still is probably the most
He
dominant.
finished him,
Listen,
though.
he made the man quit. So
He finished him.
That's the way to look at it.
Here in the UFC, Miguel, in UFC, if you don't come out for round 2, it's TKO.
It's a TKO.
That's it. So Carlos Diaz, you guys have got the ADCC coming up. You're going to be refereeing at it in Las Vegas.
Yes, 2 weeks. We're super excited. Man, it's like a whole week of events that we got going on. They are doing the first. It's really not the first official ADCC Open in the United States, but it's the one that has been most promoted and pushed. And they capped it out at over 1,000 competitors signed up for the event on a Thursday. Which is wild. You can see probably 1,000 competitors on a weekend, but on a Thursday. So, and then Friday,
there's a lot of sick time. A lot of people use sick days.
Absolutely.
Called in sick that day.
Absolutely. You know it. Then Friday, they're going to have, the Hall of Fame ceremony. They're going to have the Hall of Fame seminar, which Roger is one of the Hall of Fame alumni. And then Saturday and Sunday, the 2022 historical ADCC, with a lot of fresh new blood in the game. For example, I believe it is the first time that there is a category that there's not a returning champion. The 66 kilogram, the champion last in 2019 was Tanquinho, and he retired from competition. Yeah. So there's not a champion returning to the division. So we'll find out who the new 66 kilogram champion is going to be. And, we have legends of the game getting in the mix, like Xande Ribeiro. He threw his name in there for his division. And after all these years, he still wants out of smoke. Absolutely. 100% is savage, man, when it comes to it. And, a lot of people say, well, he's older, time's gotten to him. He competed at the World Championships last year, if I'm not mistaken. And people are like, oh, Father Time. He's still competitive. He still gets in there with the best in the world and still giving people a lot of hard time and winning matches.
Absolute legend. Carlos Diaz, thank you so much for joining us. Miguel, we're going to be back again next week with another one of these. And Carlos, I look forward to seeing you in Chicago, September 24th, Abu Dhabi Jiu-Jitsu Pro in Willowbrook. Ladies and gentlemen, please sign your gym up and get your students involved. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Check out the full interview on iTunes, Spotify, and all major podcast platforms.